for displaced or threatened researchers and professors. This is our core work at Scholars at Risk, arranging opportunities for members of the higher education community who are under threat. Our network has hosted a number of Syrian candidates already, as have our partner programs, including especially our partners at the Institute of International Education's Scholar Rescue Fund. But there are many, many more candidates than we're able to assist without your help. Imagine what will happen to Syrian society and to the region if an entire generation of students and scholars is lost. Now imagine if every EUA and AARU member, if I do the math, over 1,000 institutions, agreed to host just 10 Syrian students and 2 Syrian scholars. An entire generation would be saved. Scholars at Risk and our partner organizations are eager to work with all of you to save this generation of Syrian higher education, but we need your help. And we know we need help from states and other funding partners to help institutions with financial support to take in more students and scholars from the crisis. Such funding should not only include study, but work study and employment placement opportunities to address the full needs of this population. While this may seem on the surface to be asking a lot, let us again imagine the horrific cost to Syria and the region of a lost generation. Then let us imagine the benefit not only of keeping this generation alive, but giving it access to education and training and skills that will be essential to restoring harmony and prosperity to Syria when conditions permit, hopefully in the not distant future. By this measure, the investments we make today are a bargain. And finally, we should remember those who are still at risk inside the conflict. EUA, AARU, and your partners in state ministries of education could be enormously helpful by engaging all responsible parties in Syria. Again, without needing to address the political questions in the conflict, you could prepare a joint statement which calls on the parties to recognize the critical role that higher education plays for all Syrians, today and in the future. Such a statement could call on the responsible parties to publicly affirm their responsibilities to protect the higher education sector against violent or coercive attacks, and to take all reasonable and appropriate measures to prevent such attacks. In conclusion, what is the future of academic mobility? Increasing, certainly. The international higher education sector already represents a market of over 1.5 trillion euros and 4 million globally mobile students annually, with the OECD projecting 8 million post-secondary students studying outside of their home countries by the end of 2015. But will increasing mobility be a force for broad public good, as I hope we all believe it should be? This depends. This depends on whether we successfully ensure that the values component is part of the programs and schemes that we put in place. Absent this, increasing mobility and research collaboration may be good for some, but less beneficial or even harmful for others. Leading universities and university associations like each of yours, EUA and AARU, have a critical role to play in ensuring this broader vision, by which I have called the self-policing of values component of higher education, and especially mobility schemes. Leading institutions and associations like yours can serve as models for how to address these important issues. By exercising leadership in this area, you will not only strengthen your own positions, but can help to strengthen and stabilize the international higher education sector at this time of extraordinary change, helping to keep it creative, relevant, competitive, and able to prepare society for a global knowledge-based future. I look forward to our discussions together. I look forward to listening to your views on these issues and to learning from all of you. And I look forward to finding common agreement on concrete steps we might take together to strengthen higher education and mobility everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. There are about 65 million students, higher education students in the world. 5 million of them are international. We now open the first panel of this conference entitled Internationalization through Mobility Programs. And I call upon Ms. Leslie Nixon, the Secretary General of the European University Association, as chair of this panel.
We just have to rearrange the furniture a little bit. And I would like to ask our 4 speakers in this first workshop or panel session of the conference. So Christian Thompson, you're here, very good. The president of the Technical University in Berlin, Professor Wael Benjaloun. Yes, very good. Mohammed Nafai University in Morocco. Jean-Luc Nael. Yes, there you are, very good. You have a PowerPoint, so Abdullah, you need to put a PowerPoint, very good. And my dear friend Nadir Abu Ubaid from the Romanian Jordanian, German Jordanian University. Very good, excellent. So So as we are running late with our discussions this morning, gentlemen, as we are running a little bit late with our discussions this morning, I would suggest that we will have an hour for our panel altogether, and we have a 10-minute presentation from each of you in the order in which it's indicated in the program, and then we hope to allow some of you to speak at long last and to ask some questions. So it's a bit difficult to come back down to the very practical level of internationalizing through mobility programs. I feel rather humbled by the statements made and the principles and the specific proposals also that Bob has just...
No, I'm feeling it's very cold.
It is a bit chilly in here, this is true. So as I say, it's a bit difficult to come down from our very, very interesting keynote speeches to the very practical issues involved in mobility programs and how they contribute to internationalization. But I would like to just make slightly the transition from last speaker to our panel. If I think back to, and I had the privilege to be involved almost from the beginning in the development of the Erasmus program and the development of the Tempest programs, these were very idealistic programs. These were building Europe, and building Europe at a very difficult time for building Europe, especially both the Erasmus program and the Tempest program. So they were about individual student mobility, as our president said this morning, really important for building trust between individuals across Europe and for trust between institutions. They were important in bringing together a consensus among European nations that universities had an important role in building Europe. And that's how these projects have developed over the decades, and I still think that's why they're important, and that's why they're going to continue to be important in the future, as the delegate from the European Union explained in the opening session. So I'll now stop and ask Professor Thompson from the TU Berlin to give his contribution. Thank you.
Of universities in the Arab region and in Europe, it's a pleasure for me to be here today and to talk about internationalization on a specific level. And I appreciate very much your introductory remarks that it's kind of difficult to switch from the very important general global remarks about scholars, about how or what higher education can do, to the specific question that I've been asked to prepare. Nevertheless, I'll try to do that. I have some information on statistics. Let me just give you the general trend before the presentation actually gets started. There are about, from Europe to the Arab world, there were about, in the last 6 years, 6,000 mobilities, and with this counting a stay of more than, say, a couple of weeks or so. So it's quite tremendous, and it's a distribution over quite homogeneous in the Arab world, so many countries are participating. And in coming to Europe, most young students, it's bachelor programs, it's master's programs, PhD programs, but also staff exchange. So it's a widely utilized tool over the last 6 years. That is the Erasmus program and also the Tempus program before that. There are also quite substantial numbers of, from my point of view, outgoing exchange, outgoing mobilities of Europeans on all levels going to Arab countries. The Erasmus Mundus program limited those to roughly 30%, and I think it's a little bit less than that. It's maybe around 25% outgoing exchange. So there has been, over the last 6 years, substantial, specific exchange, mobility between institutions in the Arab world and Europe. And I think that is to be considered the success of the program, of the Erasmus program. We're getting close. What is going to happen in the next 6 years is defined through the Erasmus Plus program. It is somewhat in detail, thank you very much, different from the previous program. Let me just skip to the point where I am in my talk. How do I proceed? Okay. That was number of scholars from the Arab world going to Europe. I talked about that. And you see the percentage distribution is roughly proportional to the size of the country. These are the incoming scholars and students to Arab partner universities with a significant increase over the last 6 years. So it's a successful program. That's what I call success. And I was just about to talk about the Erasmus Plus program. The EU is providing a quite large amount, 15 billion euros for the next 6 years. And interesting for the point of mobility is the key action 1. That's a credit mobility, student exchange 3 to 12 months, and staff exchange 5 days to 2 months. In particular for the MENA region, they're considered to be expecting 25,000 mobilities. So that's an increase of a factor of 3 or 4 over the previous 6 years. The mobilities will start in the academic year 2015-16. Currently, the call, I understand, will open in September of 2014, and fairly soon, and the application deadline is in February of next year. The scheme will be that the European university will apply to their national agency, that is, we will apply to the German DID Foundation for funding for this program. And so what you need, what all Arab universities need, is an inter-institutional agreement with the European university. It should be easy because of the previously existing 6 years Erasmus program. Many of you have contacts to European universities, and I actually brought my experienced Erasmus manager, Olivier Pfeiffer, with me, and you can start contacting him as far as, if you like, for some first inter-institutional agreement. Now, I was also asked to talk about other possibilities of arranging inter-Arab exchange, inter-Arab mobility is a value in itself, and I'm putting as an example the German Academic Exchange Service. Many of you know the DAT program, and it supported in 2013 alone just over 2,000 Germans coming to the Arab world, and just about 7,000 Arab students coming to Germany, that is. It's a fairly large organization. It does student mobility into the entire world. So that's not what you need. So you don't need €500 million for that. But as an option, as an organizational option, the Arab world could have some kind of exchange foundation, just like the DAAD, for inter-Arab exchange or inter-Arab mobility. We'd be happy to give you some assistance as to how in principle it works, but you can see from the German figures that it's a possible arrangement with many possible participants and quite a successful program. I'm coming to describe the impact of the mobilities of my university, of Technische Universität in Berlin, and you can see here the TU incoming students from the Arab world. There are about 800 students from the MENA region currently at my university. It's a quite international university. About 22% of the students are from abroad, and the German average is about 13%, so our percentage is about twice that. We have a number of joint and double degree programs, and well, you can read the rest. I won't go into the details. One specific idea that we have is a campus in Egypt, in El Guna in Egypt. It's a satellite campus of TU Berlin, so it's a German standard research facility. You can study, you can do research. It's fully equipped with equipment and for research. There are several study programs. There's energy engineering, urban development, water engineering. We offer 2 years Master of Science in English as a teaching language, and you can get 120 credit points. For those that is interesting for you, there's an application deadline at the end of next month, and that will be the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
I should just ask our next speaker. The microphone takes a little while to warm up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank both associations, the Arab and European associations, as well as the 2 universities, for organizing this meeting and giving me the opportunity to talk to such a distinguished audience. What I'd like to talk about today is Morocco and my own university within that context. And Morocco, of course, because of its geographical position, has benefited from 3 neighboring environments: Europe, Africa, and the Arab world. And this is reflected in the internationalization programs of Mohammed V University, the country's first modern center for higher education, founded in 1957. Relations with the European neighbor have traditionally been the strongest, with more than 200 cooperation agreements between my university and European universities, with over the years multiple integrated research projects on a binational level with Spain and France, and with Med Campus, BCRD, Tempus, Erasmus, Mundus, Imagina, Veroas, the IRD International Labs, the French CNRS, and the GDRI grants, including joint thesis supervision. At a time of turbulence in the region, student mobility has never been as important as it is today, allowing a better understanding of the other and therefore eliminating refractory stereotypes. Our African internationalization programs resulted in more than 14,000 African students among the 20,000 foreign students in Morocco, currently registered in Moroccan universities. Arab internationalization exchanges, however, have remained limited, though they have significantly increased in the past few years, with our university and others developing relations with Mauritania, Tunisia, and Egypt, and we have opened a branch campus in Abu Dhabi in the Emirates. Further east, China has just announced an ambitious program to fund exchanges and research with Moroccan universities, as well as the creation of common research laboratories. The US and Latin America are also developing into encouraging areas for extension. The recently announced European Neighborhood Instrument is a promising framework, we think, for future collaborations and internationalization. Building on the achievements of earlier programs, NE brings tangible support for bilateral and multilateral programs to a budget of 15.433 billion euros, a number of programs. The eligible NE South countries include Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and most of the other Arab countries south of the Mediterranean, and it runs from 2014 to 2020. Covering the promotion of democracy, human rights, civil society, capacity building, infrastructure, higher education, etc. As the Horizon 2020 program becomes clearer for the membership south of the Mediterranean, I think this may also become an important instrument of internationalization. Along with the Union for the Mediterranean and the inauguration of the second-year Mediterranean University and ENSA in Fez, the École Centrale in Casablanca, interesting possibilities are being created which should encourage internationalization and cooperation. Concerning these last two establishments, these last two institutions, these enter within a new government program meant to bring international universities to Morocco and to make of our country a hub for higher education in the region. This is a strategic orientation which, in addition to the 15 existing public universities, has added 3 private universities, 1 fully autonomous university, and 3 public-private partnership universities, including the 2 I mentioned and the International University in Rabat. This opportunity is also attracting other establishments from Spain, from Italy, and from Russia, and which all have indicated an interest in opening branch campuses in Morocco. We have 52,000 Moroccan students abroad in exchange for the 20,000 foreign students in Morocco. And this deficit, I think, may be accounted for with the new strategy of attracting foreign universities to Morocco. Thank you.
Okay. Second is here. Okay, thank you. Just first, for the first results of the programs of Erasmus, you know, really it was a big and really strong adventure. Just any words for that. The lifelong learning program from 2007 and 2013 in France was about 636 million euros for 7 years. And I think that everybody now is very happy for these results. There is 4 sub-programs and 1 transversal action with enhanced mobility and cooperation in several fields. Erasmus for higher education, Comenius for school, Leonardo da Vinci for vocational education and training, and Grundvik for adult education, with study visit for innovation and best practices exchange. What are the results? Problem. Oops. Can I have your help? No? Okay. Okay. An assessment for the lifelong learning program for France. Overall, from 2007 to 2013, what are the numbers? A total of 423,900 mobilities, 223,829 Erasmus mobility, 37,244 mobility for the professional program, and 4,022 partnership program. More than 13,000 project developers who benefited from a financing from 2008 to 2013. And now I want just to present the Euromed Mobilities. The new program, not new because it begins just in 2011, but I think is a very good tool for everybody for the next 7 years. It's a Euro-Mediterranean strategy for employment, training, and mobility. A bit landscape. And the long-awaited tool. 60 million of young people, 29 years old in the Arab countries of the Mediterranean Sea, namely 61% of the total population. 44% of them belong neither to the education and training system nor to the job market. The only region in the world where the unemployment rate of the most highly educated group is higher than that of the workers with a primary or secondary education. It represents the most educated people among this age category. 30% of young people pursue university studies. A specific information offered about the mobility in this area creates a stronger Euro-Mediterranean new program dynamic in the field education and training. A cooperation opportunity between both sides of the sea. Start of the reflection from the very beginning of 2011
launching for the whole mobilities, Euromed Mobilities platform in September 2013, an Euro-Mediterranean orientation at the heart of the Erasmus Plus 2014 till 2020 program, and Euromed 4, an orientation, Euromed Plus, an orientation more focused and vocational training. I just present any possibilities. A platform dedicated to mobility and cooperation in the Euro-Mediterranean area, launched in September 2013, with its 38 partners provides information about the possibilities of cooperation and mobility, news monitoring and policy for youth education, an advisory space for mobility within this territory, and orientation toward the actual financing offer. Euromed working group regularly meets in Marseille and gathers the 38 institutional partners. I just give you the first result. Overall 21,190 visits for the website from September 2013, and 70% of the total number of visits from France, Spain and Italy. You can see 11,000 visits, 800 visits, and Italy 400 visits, 471 visits. North Africa, Morocco, 2,568 visits, Tunisia 500 visits, and Algeria 500 visits. West India, Lebanon, Israel, West Asia, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, 100 visits, Jordan 57 visits. And now, you know, platform which attains its target age. And we can see now that for the age we have a very good target between 18 and 24 and 25 and 34 years. A platform will achieve its goal as an information provider, and a platform which attracts new visitors. I think for the conclusion, Euromed Mobilities is a French-Italian initiative presented to the Italian presidency of the EU Council. 10 June 2014, presentation of the new project to the Euromed Mobility Working Group. 19 June 2014, presentation to the Group of Expert Education, involvement of other national agencies in charge of Erasmus+, a governmental reach of Mediterranean of project oriented towards the youth, which is linked with the PACA region. France and Italy present an evolution of this platform at the European Union Council we started in early June. Thank you. And I think that with Euromed you have really a strong tool for the next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. You see, we have many different models here, but now we're going to have a very special model, and that is the model of the Jordanian German University. And I'm very pleased that the President is here today, and also to have had the privilege of visiting the university earlier on. So,
thank you, Leslie.
The last model.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. German Jordanian University did not start in its essence as a mobility program or a mobility project, but on ground and in reality tend to be an intensive one. The German Jordanian University started as an agreement between the two governments of Jordan and Germany. It was a very pragmatic project. For our German friends, they needed a project, or they wanted a project of internationalization. For us, Jordanians, we needed a different model that is based on applied education in Jordan. We have more than 30 universities in Jordan. This is the only applied science model of education in Jordan. So, I will tell the story of GJU, just listing the attributes that are linked to mobility. In our system, we have what is called the fourth German year, in which that our students, they have to go to Germany to spend 1 year in there. In this 1 year, in the first part, they have to study at one of the German universities. In able to do that, we had to make partnerships with more than 85 German universities. All of them, nearly, are based on the German applied model of education. In the second half of their fourth year, they have to do 6 months of internship in one of the German firms in Germany. So far, since the establishment of our university, since 2005, our students and graduates that have gone to Germany, the number has exceeded by far 1,000 students to this moment. I think this year we have, only this year, 400 Jordanian students studying and doing their internship in Germany. We also receive some German students. They come and spend 1 semester at our university. And by the way, our educational language, the instruction of education is English. But at the same time, students, they have to learn the German language. So in the first 3 years, they learn the German so that in the 4th year, they go to Germany while they know how to speak German. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that teaching German language at GJU is by itself an educational institution. At this moment, while I'm speaking to you, we have more than 65 German professors teaching German language at our university. And you can imagine what kind of educational bridging and cross-culturing between our university and German universities, just to mention this number of professors, at this time. We also have a program for exchange of professors between our university and the German universities. One of the programs that we have is called Flying Faculty. We have many German professors that they come and teach on modular systems. They come and teach intensive courses and classes for our students in different disciplines. And most of these disciplines are applied, based on applied sciences. Most of them are engineering. And at the same time, we have a program called Train the Trainer, in which our professors, they go to German universities and teach in there and get exposed to what is the applied education, the applied science education model in German universities. Also, to have a partnership with this large number of German universities, as I mentioned, more than 85 universities. This means that you have a different system of governance. We have an office in Germany. This is our liaison office to manage our relationship with German universities and with the firms and industrial institutions that we are linked to in Germany. And at the same time, we have 2 offices at our university. One of them for managing academic relationship with our German friends is called the International Office, and it is managed by one of our German colleagues. And there's another office called the Industrial Link Office. Its responsibility is to manage our relationships and industrial links with the industry and the firms in Germany and in the region. Also, it is managed by one of our German friends and colleagues. At the same time, on the strategic level, we have several members on our board of trustees that they share in the strategic planning and visions for our university and future plans. While on the managerial level, one of my vice presidents, Dr. Anton Mangstor, and he's in there, he's German. So we have a lot of levels of governance within this project, and this is a very, very good learning lesson for us. On the strategic level, on the management level, we also have on the academic level. We have networks for different specialties that we have at our university. For example, if you take computer engineering, we have a network for computer engineering programs and study plans and ways of teaching and instruction. And this network in Germany, they have a coordinator, and this coordinator is linked to another coordinator, counter coordinator at our university at GJU, and they meet regularly. So this also by itself is a governance system on the academic level. The impacts that we feel, as a result of this project, that there is really an interactive process on ground, very rigorous one, with large numbers, as an interaction between our students and the German students, our students at German universities, our students and the German culture. And don't forget that mobility is not only between Jordan and Germany in this regard. There is also what is called mobility within mobility, like within Germany. A student, he goes and stays first 6 months in a university in one city and ends up doing his internship in another city in Germany. They go with certain characteristic attributes and they come back different persons, Just a simple indicator of the quality of those students when they graduate. We have a very high rate of employability. This is well known in Jordan. I'm really here to present this example of mobility as a byproduct of transnational model of education. I think if we have more of this model, it will really boost and increase drastically, the level of interaction and mobility between the Arab universities and European universities, and even within the Arab universities themselves. I very much encourage to have this model as part of the funding plans for European and Arab agencies to support and to see more examples of this, to cover also other aspects of education. Thank you very much.
To other institutions, and obviously has it as a priority to continue and further develop that with the Arab region. Then we have, as I understood from Morocco, you are looking to become a regional hub, and you are looking at this in a very strategic way and introducing different types of international cooperation opportunities in your country. And then we have the new developing for the future Franco-Italian platform, as far as I understand, which has very clear plans and objectives and should also be introduced as another concept with many different universities, 38 in the platform. So it's up to you. We have still some time. I hope you're not completely exhausted listening to all these presentations, but if you have questions or comments or other types of models of mobility that you think are important, it's the opportunity now. And we have microphones, I hope, and 1, 2, and 3. So the lady in the middle of the foot, and then here, and then yes.
I'm Hanan Malkawi from Yarmouk University. In fact, I have really good experience with the mobility project, the Erasmus projects, because I've been the contact person for so many of these. And I'm just throwing some challenges that we are really facing. One of them is really, I don't want to call it brain drain, because we want really these students, especially the ones that are degree seeking, the ones that finish their PhD or master in Europe countries, to come back to their home universities. But there is no obligation, there is no such a thing in Erasmus that tells them to go back. So what we do, sometimes we force them, sorry to say this, to sign a contract with the university because we want them back. Another issue is it's technical, it's the visa, issuing problem regarding the staff and the students. One comment for Dr. Nadir. You mentioned that that there are like 65 professors from Germany that teach German at GJU, and that your students have to learn German. How about the German students? Don't they have to learn Arabic also? Because it has to be vice versa, right? And one more comment, excuse me, I'm taking the time, but it's for the president of TU Berlin. It's a very nice campus, by the way, I've been there. You have a branch UCIT campus in Egypt. Is it offering a dual joint? I mean, do you have both logos, Egypt and Germany, or is it just a branch for your university? Thank you.
I think I'm going to take the other two questions and then I'll come back to the panel.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. And I'd like to thank the Princess Sumaya University for providing us this invitation to come and meet with such elite in the European universities and the Arab universities at the same time. I have just comments on our first speaker, the president of the Berlin Technical University. What we find actually is just statistics about the DAD and what offered to the Arab countries. And I think that most of these projects running on individual base, I mean with personal contact, that's good. But we need actually to build such concrete mobility programs through institutional foundation. This band know the other one in Berlin, and the other one know that in Kolbos, understand that, for example. But we need to build such a strong mobility base, since mobility is one of the main elements of the internationalization, either for staff or for students. I think that in this conference we need to end with how to submit and how to concrete our, whatever the expression will be, such a sustainable system for mobility. This is what actually I got. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just take one more question in the first round, and Dr. Issa.
Thank you so much. Just if you have any thoughts, any one of you, in the challenge that most of European mobility is within Europe. If you recall the numbers in Barcelona, like 90% higher than students within Europe move within Europe, and few move outside Europe. And in the Arab world is even more challenging because there is a little bit of Arab mobility in the Arab world, very little. Lack of, a lot of kind of cooperative program that pushes that mobility. If, from Barcelona to Amman, the last year to this year, that is a challenge that we discussed. Is there any thoughts from your experiences how to increase European Arab and Arab European mobility in any thought, very quickly? Because that really, well, I wanted to hear some ideas last discussion. I think we lifted to this conference. And given the four speakers addressed the mobility, what can we do to increase the number of Europeans coming to the region and vice versa?
Well, that's a huge question. So I suggest we take the last question here, and then we go to a round with all of you. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a question and it's a comment, but rather I put it as a question. Don't you think that the mobility that we're talking about is a little bit on a conventional side of what people are talking about at the moment, especially with the advancement of ICT, the technology side of it? The reason I'm raising this question to the gentlemen on the panel, because we are at Hamdan bin Mohammed Smart University. We're doing another model of mobility that Professor Nadir has already mentioned. That we are bringing the learners from our university to be exposed to the cultures around the world and bringing the brains of the world to Dubai without having to have a mobility in a conventional manner. So your thoughts about it, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, now I'll turn to the panel. Maybe, first of all, the specific questions. So the first specific questions, there were two for the TU Berlin, one on dual degrees in Egypt and the other on institutional development as such.
So our satellite in Luna offers degrees that are equivalent to a German degree, and it's master studies only, and it's taught in English. And we accept students from all around the world, and the statistics show that we have students also from all around the world. Second
It's
question
about
was,
how to make how to further support interinstitutional development and to make
Right.
it sustainable and not just
Yes,
student
that was your
mobility.
question. The point is,
Yes.
it always boils down to money. If you have sustainable form of funding, and I think Erasmus Plus with a 6-year program is such a form that will last for quite a while, and then we'll expect to have a continuation after that. Then you can have a sustainable form of exchange. If you have a commitment from a country that says, oh, we'll start a program and then we'll stop it again, then it won't work. So it's an issue of committing for governments to commit substantial amounts of money for the mobility, then it will be sustainable.
Can I have a comment?
Quickly, yes?
Very, very quickly. Why don't find sponsors fund this programs?
Give me some names, we'll talk to them.
Telecommunication companies, banks, high factories.
Completely agree.
This is an
This is
internal
an
question.
sustainable and institutional based for mobility.
But allow me to comment that the governments are typically more sustainable than companies as far as long-term funding of project goes.
But banks and telecommunication companies are very rich also.
Yeah, well, I think this is a question that we could talk about the whole day long, I think. It's a very important issue. So just quickly, the question of, do the German students learn Arabic?
Well, now we are working on it, actually. We are in the process of establishing an Arabic language center.
We compete in National. We have one professor.
No, this one has been actually established first. I think it was in Berlin, in Germany. Maybe Professor Marxer can help me in that details. And now we are moving it into GG. It will teach not only the students, also all those who are interested, including diplomats, to come and learn Arabic as a second language. And it's a big project. So yes, we agree with you and we are working on it. But luckily, the instructions at our university is in English. So students who come from Germany, they know English, and there is no problem for them to. But of course, language is about culture and cross-cultural, and we are working on it.
Thank you. Now I'd like to ask the panel about the really tricky question and very, also still an acute question for all of us. What about brain drain issues, and what are your views? What do you think about the solution found here was to really make people sign contracts and so forth?
I really don't know.
Sorry. Well, another answer about funders, and then we come back. It gives you some time to think about the brain drain issues.
No, you know why? Because Gilman, you have said, I think it was very, very interesting, because between Morocco, like you can say, and the French area that is called Brittany, extreme west of France, there is some arrangement. You have some bank, you have some insurance, and at the same time you have some master, and you are one master in insurance, one master in bank, that is covered by a bank and covered by an insurance. Like that, you can find a job for a French student that comes to Morocco, a Moroccan student that comes in France after. When he comes back in Morocco, he can find a job immediately like that. So I think you have
got my message.
Yeah, I think it's a very good message for that. Thank you.
And I think for our Spanish colleagues, Banco Santander does wonderful work with the universities. So banks can be involved in university work. The other thing is about the culture and using the internet for exchanges and virtual mobility. I think that's a very important point. It increases the numbers, but it does not replace the cultural contact that one gets at the university of choice. I think it can be a very good complement to traditional mobility, but I don't know if it can totally replace it. But, brain drain. I think it's brain exchange. It's not really brain drain. There's no way we can control it now without infringing on human rights. So what we have to do, as Arab countries at least, is to make it attractive for these people, either to come back or to contribute to exchanges between the country where they end up and their country of origin. I think this is where the real effort has to be made.
Maybe we can find a new word for that for you. It's a circulation of talents.
Thank you.
far as the brain drain goes, I think it's an issue. It's not the right word, I agree with my colleagues on the panel, and the question is what to do to make it attractive for the brains to come back, let's say, to Jordan if they have education, let's say, in Germany. And I think what can make it, or let me start the other way around, the students go to Europe, Spain, France, Germany, and they study and they do actually, during their master course, research, in the sense that they work on novel ideas in their specific topics. And what the MENA region, I think, would make it more attractive to come back if you also developed serious and large areas where research is being done. Because then the attraction for the brains that started to be addicted a little bit to research will have an incentive to come back into the MENA region.
Some of our students, I don't think they reach 5%, but it's okay if they reach 10%. They either stay in Germany or they just come back and get the degrees and go back again because they find jobs in there. A month ago, I have been visited by a couple of them, and they came to visit me and to tell me, sir, if you need places for internship for other students, our colleagues in classmates to come to Germany, we are willing to help you. So for us, I think of them as educational ambassadors.
Maybe now the difficult question from our president, our host here. What can we do quickly? Quick ideas on improving mobility, which is, as you say, Dr. Isi, this is what we talked about in Barcelona. This is our topic here today, how we can actually build on the different experiences that we all have, but move forward, right? Any ideas on this? Yes, please.
Well, I'm not sure whether it's going to be quick, but the aspect that I mentioned briefly, the inter-Arab mobility, I think is something that could be more easily started and pushed, because mobility per se is a value. It doesn't really matter so much, I think, where you go, whether you go to Europe or to the United States is one possibility, but to enhance the inter-Arab mobility just within the MENA region is a value in itself that I think could be started relatively easily.
Other reflections on this pretty basic topic, but one that's very difficult to answer?
I think it plays at two levels. One level is a quality level, is that students that travel must perceive that they are getting a higher level of quality than what they're getting at home. And I think we can play with that. There are many very high quality institutions in the Arab world now that need to become known. So that, and we see this, we see Moroccan students going to the Gulf, for example, for some of the education sitting in Qatar or in the United Arab Emirates. We also see students from the Gulf coming to Morocco. How we can increase that is certainly, again, it's a strategic financial decision that has to be made at some levels.
Thank you.
Just one other thing, that mobility creates innovation, creation, and ability of network. And for that, you need mobility after to find a job. But the problem is, what kind of job you can find after. So I think for your question, it was the best to try to mix university, enterprise, and network of students or something like that, to have a massive organization, not only personal organization for anybody for that, you know. I think that it can be between the south of Mediterranean and north of Mediterranean for the next 7 years. We have a strong challenge for that.
Madam Chairman, I need this to be a recommendation for people. I need this to be one of our recommendations for the end of the conference. What you conclude, because it's a very important point. I wish.
Okay, noted.
Well, I think 4 points. First, university leaders, they really have to believe in the value of mobility. This is very important, because this has to be reflected on the flexibility of the governance and the system, how to exchange the students. You know, otherwise they will put obstacles and they will, you know, even without being explicit about it, they will not really support it, you know. So this is very important. The second thing is really we have to be pragmatic about it. You know, we have to feel where is the stake in mobility. And I think different universities, they have different interests, and they have to search for points of convergence, you know. So this is also important. And lastly, of course, and it's most important, always you need funding.
Right. I see we still have to go 2, 3. I'm looking at the organizers. When do we have to stop?
Let's take 10 more minutes.
10 minutes more. Okay. Then please we can carry on with the questions. Is there a microphone for here on this side, please? And then we go up the way. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the excellent discussion. Well,
Tell us where you come from.
Well, I'm from Lebanon. I'm from the Lebanese International University. Our university basically has several memorandum of understandings with European universities. The obstacle that we have in terms of exchange lies in the fact that not all of our students get visas to enter to the European Union. And on the other hand, many a time, and this is a problem with half of the Arab world, there are travel bans against the European students to come to our part of the world. We understand the security issues. We understand how we have to make our students safe both ways. But many a time, these things have, and excuse me to say, have political connotations. They are related to the political agendas. We see that there are some countries whereby car bombs take place on a daily basis, yet there are no travel bans on them. On the other hand, there are places where just because of a political issue, we are losing some of the values of these memorandum, of these understandings, because of the lack of exchange. What can we do about that?
Okay, I'm going to take the 2 or 3 questions. One, the gentleman in the middle, and then to the gentleman on the right-hand side from my perspective. So, both up at the back. This, yes. Okay, this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Chairman, actually, as ex-German scholar, I'm very happy to hear about this sizable role of Germany in this mobility. What about the rest of Europe? Is it difficult to be mobilized in this direction of mobility? My question to the president of TU, Kermit, concerning the institute in Egypt. Why do you start with the master's degree? I'm not below that. And is it open to the countries in the region?